Even though it's completely irrational, when I watch Star Wars and many other movies, there's often a little part of me that will hope certain moments turn out differently. You know, a little subconscious part of me will always hope that Scar chooses not to kill his brother, Mufasa, in The Lion King, or that this one time Qui-Gon Jinn will be able to defend himself from Darth Maul. Or, more than any, that Anakin, when it truly mattered, will make the right decision in the most important moment of his life. Of course, it never happens. It's a movie, it's unchangeable, and more than that, the drama plays a very important part in the story. Without Anakin making that initial wrong decision, we don't get my favorite moment in the Star Wars universe, where Vader, because of the love of his son, chooses to give his life to save his family. He does this knowing that he will never get to be the father that he truly wanted to be, and that he'll never get to right the many wrongs that he's done. I love the end of Return of the Jedi so much, not only because it shows us the power of family and the love for one's children, but because it ultimately shows us that nobody is too far gone, and that even a comically evil monster like Darth Vader still has an element of humanity within him, which he can choose to embrace and save his soul. After seeing The Rise of Skywalker, I figured that I'd have another one of those moments that I'd always hoped would go slightly different, and that's the end of the movie, and specifically the death of Ben Solo. Now, I've got a lot of problems with the sequel trilogy, and Episode 9 especially, but I think Ben Solo is a phenomenal character, and I loved seeing his arc through all the way to the end. However, I couldn't help but feel, especially after my first viewing, that it was a waste to throw away such a good character, a character who, as we see at the end, is fundamentally good. But my thoughts have started to change on this, and after I've spent some time really thinking about it, I now think that Ben Solo's death was the only possible way to conclude Episode 9. It all started for me when I was talking to my friend Corey, who runs several Star Wars YouTube channels, Corey's Datapad and Corey Loses, both which I really recommend and I'll include in the description. And he basically talked about how he didn't believe that redemption for crimes committed by people like Kylo or Vader could be achieved without death. And I think he had both a practical and perhaps a moral or philosophical rationale behind his argument. And I mean, from a practical standpoint, Kylo was a really bad dude. He was complicit in the death of trillions as he oversaw the destruction of the Hosnian system as a high-ranking official within the First Order. To me, the specifics don't matter. Whether it was ordered by Snoke, whether Kylo simply oversaw what happened, he was a key cog in the machine that destroyed an entire star system. However, more than that, Kylo has been personally involved in the death of hundreds, if not thousands. He killed not only his father, and of course, Lor San Tekka as we see in the opening scene for The Force Awakens, but countless others, from innocents to combatants, with a wide range of culpability, both practically and morally. So from a storytelling perspective, how does somebody like this coexist in a galaxy which he's ripped apart, where there are literally trillions of families affected by his actions? I don't think Kylo being put in prison or executed by the New Republic is very satisfying, and as someone whose fall has been based on a sense of detachment from family, I don't think being secluded to Acto or some other part of the galaxy as a hermit is any more of a happy ending than dying. I mean, we see with Obi-Wan and Yoda that this sort of seclusion is as much a punishment as anything else, that it's their duty to live this life, and there's probably not a whole lot else keeping them going. However, I think the far more interesting argument has to do with, as I mentioned, morality and the thematic elements of Star Wars. And to me personally, I feel like a key element of redemption is sacrifice. If a character has done evil, I don't think they can meaningfully redeem themselves without having to give something up. Now, that does sort of sound like Christianity and the idea of redemptive suffering, but I'm not religious and that's not at all the perspective that I'm bringing into this conversation. Instead, it's just thematically, I think a big element of redemption is selflessness. In Star Wars especially, selflessness is one of the attributes most commonly associated with being a good person. The Jedi are willing to give their lives to do what's right. So just to sort of summarize, for me, the idea of redemption and sacrifice are intertwined, because if there's no difficulty associated with doing the right thing, the choice isn't really meaningful, and it doesn't show the moral character of the person being redeemed. And again, look to Vader. I don't think that final scene is nearly as satisfying if he survives, especially given the prequels morals and the knowledge that what Anakin really wanted was love and a family, something he was really close to achieving. But let's even look specifically at Kylo. If he just, in Episode 8, killed Snoke, then joined the Resistance, I don't think we see a real change in his character, even if he killed Snoke simply to save Rey. And to me, it's the same in Episode 9. I think it's a very happy ending in Episode 9 if Ben manages to kill Palpatine and turns to the light side and is embraced by his friends or family. However, while it is satisfying in the moment, I don't think it's thematically significant. There's a lack of sacrifice and a lack of atonement, and I think those come together to really minimize the horrors that he committed as Kylo Ren. And we'd never see him as the ultimately redeemed, ultimately good person that he is at the end of the Rise of Skywalker. But there's more than that. Although Star Wars is about the Skywalkers, it's an entire galaxy out there. And the Star Wars movies are ultimately messages about how to be a good person, especially while getting older, growing up, and dealing with difficult situations. The ending thus can't preface Kylo, because of his bloodline and because of the fact that he is a main character, to the detriment and unfairness of the rest of the galaxy. Kylo is a mass murderer. He was manipulated, but he's ended or ruined countless lives. Seeing him escape justice makes everyone that he's hurt minimized. And that's why I don't like characters like, say, Hondo Ohnaka being treated as good guys. Hondo did a lot of very bad things. He was willing to kill children, for example, and never really redeemed himself. On the other hand, Han Solo, whose crimes were much lesser than Kylo, showed himself to be a good person by giving up profit, which had been the motivator for his life. Have him free in the galaxy and you're moving the burden of his crimes to his victims. Have him be alone on a planet like Acto and you're moving the burden to the people that love him, like Rey. You can also probably tie these themes into the end of the movie, which sees Rey take the Skywalker name as her own. This may have something to do with moving the sort of blessed status that these characters are given to others who deserve it, while also recognizing that family, or even from a meta perspective being a main character, doesn't put you ahead of everyone else in the universe. But I'm not sure about that, it's just something I've been thinking. There is a final point though, and I think this is important. When an evil character does this sacrifice, when they give up everything to become the good person they are deep down, they save their soul. There is everlasting life. We see the journey Anakin goes on, we see everything that he loses. We see him finally become again a good person, and he's rewarded by becoming a Force ghost and being reunited with his friends. And that's one of the reasons Jason's death from Legends hurts so much. He's a character that we really grow to love. He falls to the dark side, but doesn't have that same redemption at the end. And instead of being saved, he's essentially in purgatory. However, even within there, as we learn in Fate of the Jedi, there is a glimmer of hope for ultimate redemption. I posted some of these thoughts on Twitter earlier today, and I got a good question asking, but isn't the saga at the end of the day a fairy tale? And in my response I say, yeah, it is a fairy tale, and that's why these characters ultimately get rewarded for giving up everything to do the right thing. It's a message to us about how we should act. They don't just die, they die and end up in Force heaven. I mean, these are examples for how to live our lives. We won't be killing, hopefully, millions of people, or be leading a terrible empire against a galaxy. But hopefully we can nonetheless learn lessons about how to be good, while also having hope that even the bad out there have some good within them. That is, however, just my opinion. I'm sorry this video was a bit more rambly than usual. I'm really curious to hear what you guys think. I know episode 9 may not have been satisfying with Kylo's death, but for some of you on the fence, have I convinced you that maybe from a thematic standpoint it was necessary, or do you disagree? I definitely know that my argument is predicated on my opinions largely, especially regarding sacrifice and redemption. If you disagree, I'd love to read about it down in the comments. Respectfully, Raylos. I'm just joking, but as always guys, have a great day, and may the Force be with you.